positive expectation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
I'm glad that you enjoyed that. I did not. Just saying.
Sorry.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I'm a transformational life coach, and I help people shift their thinking, and badass shit happens.
And just for the record, I'm not laughing at the fact that I did that. I'm laughing at the face you made when
I figured it was, and I was like, just kind of kept it there for a moment.
Thank you so much for listening and watching. Each week we start a discussion from a different jumping off point. Today we're going to talk about confidence, but to briefly explain what just happened there, I do sometimes start the...
You have not done that in a long time.
Well, I think that might have been the most brutal that I did it, and I didn't intend it to be that brutal, but it ended up being very brutal. So we were in friend time, we were just talking back and forth, and I hit the record button like in mid-sentence for you, but you really were in mid-sentence, like you were in...
Literally.
Yes.
So I was reading,
which I was just going to apologize for, but then the look on your face was just, you had this look that was very
so
sorry about that.
I was like, well, so what do you want to talk about in this episode?
Yeah.
And Colin's like, well, you wanted to talk about confidence. And I'm like, I did? No, I didn't. And then you're like, yeah, you sent me that thing. And I'm like, about confidence, Abraham. I'm like, so I'm scrolling through my text messages with you, and I come across the image, and I had written down, oh my God, it is one of my old pads. I had pads made on some, and it was when I was calling myself healing Stephanie Orlina, intuitive healer and spirit guide. And so it's a beautiful pad, and it says, thank you for being here today. Your healing prescription is. So I came across them in my decluttering, and I had written down confidence, appreciation, and positive expectation, Stephanie. And I thought, oh, so I had sent it to you that day, and I'm like, yes, that's a great one. But you had talked about confidence before and wanting to talk about it. And so...
Well, I've been hesitant. I have really wanted to talk about it because I think it's super important. I've been hesitant to pull the trigger on it in an actual recording like we do, because I am not confident in my knowledge and expertise about confidence, ironically, or fittingly. I guess that's accurate, not ironic. But when we were just briefly talking about it in friend time before we started recording, I was thinking, you said something that triggered... Oh, you said you seem really confident in certain situations, Collin, and that really resonated with me. And I think that's a huge part of confidence, is that when we feel like we know what we're doing, or we're amongst people we know love, care, and support us, and we love, care for, and support them, it's sort of like we get confident accidentally or unintentionally, because we're just in an element where we feel like, I guess it's really thinking, we say feel, but we're thinking like, this is great, or I can do this, I've done this before, that sort of thing. I think where I feel like, and I just think that confidence is huge in terms of the law of attraction and art of allowing, because I feel like if we are confident, we're going to be in a high vibration, attracting more of what we want and more positive experiences and more positive things into our lives. And it's almost like when I'm not confident, I feel like I'm in a negative vibration, and I'm like resisting things and just sort of assuming the worst and that sort of thing, because I feel like a lack of confidence is really fear. And my brain's great at fear thoughts, it's like, oh, what if this goes wrong? What if you make a fool of yourself? What if they don't like you? What if da 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 da? And I was thinking, like, the toughest part for me with confidence is, which this surprises a lot of people, especially those who know me as a musician or from this podcast or whatever. But it's really like talking with other people. And what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm a huge introvert on the Myers-Briggs personality scale. And introverts have a really tough time being in person with people they've never met before. And so anytime I have to or want to or get invited to like a party or a dinner or something where there's going to be one or more people I don't know, this weird thing happens where when I get to the thing, I shut down kind of, when normally if I was just having dinner with you and my sister, or if I was doing the show or whatever, I would just be like I am
Yeah.
now, like stuff's
Yeah.
just rolling off my tongue. But people are surprised at that. I've had people who know me really well go out to dinner with me and like three other people I don't know yet, I've never met, and they'll be shocked afterwards and they're like, you didn't say a
Mm,
word through the whole thing.
wow.
And I'm like, I know. That's the introvert thing of,
What are the thoughts that are going through your head during that prior to meeting and then when
yeah.
you're there?
I'd love to think that they're super complicated thoughts, and that's why I'm so thwarted by them, because they're so complicated. I think the brutal truth is they're like the dumbest, most simple thoughts ever. And they're like,
I know, but what are they?
what if they
What
don't
would you
like me?
say?
What if I make a fool of
Okay.
myself? What if
Okay.
they think I'm not cool? What if they think I'm not charming? What if they, yeah, but it then
Hmm.
boils down to like, what if they don't like me, or what if they hate me? Which, you know,
Yeah.
from that it's like, number one, who cares? Like three people you never met before
No,
didn't
but
like
it's real, right?
it. Feels
I
very
can
real. Yeah.
relate. I can relate to those thoughts. Of
Yeah.
course, I can relate to those thoughts. And it kind of comes back to what, you know, Abraham talks about and what I, teach with my clients is that, how does that thought feel?
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
So,
makes me feel really like alone, sad, sometimes painful. Like it feels
mhm,
like I'm in pain, emotional pain. Yeah. Which all of those things lower my vibration and put up
right.
resistance to good stuff happening.
And then going back to like the whole emotional guidance system, which we all have, and it's there to serve us, and it lets us know, like, well, how does that thought feel? And if it feels bad, like you were saying, it makes you feel horrible. It's not because it's true. It's only because that thought is so far away from what your highest self is thinking about you and
Yeah.
what is really true. And that negative emotion that I'm feeling, that you were feeling, is an indication of that separation.
Yeah.
Whereas when you were talking about, when you're here recording or when you're having dinner with, two friends that you are comfortable with and and you're feeling that joy and the elation, why are you feeling that you're having thoughts that are in alignment with your higher self? You're like totally, at one with your higher self. And that is where that positive emotion comes
Yeah.
from.
One of the examples of that for me, which was, it just was so clear to me. I remember this when I was in my 20s years ago. Um, Whenever I was single back then, like almost talking to any woman, if I found out she was single too, it didn't matter if I felt a vibe or was interested or attracted. It's like if I found out another woman was single, I instantly got lost all my confidence, because my thoughts were like, oh, like, should you be asking her on a date? And like, oh, well, if you end up trying to ask her on a date, you better impress her, and like you're not being very impressive, and like what if she doesn't say yeah, all this stuff, even if I didn't want, even if there was like no chemistry, whatever, like, but if I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
a girlfriend, if I was in a secure relationship and happy in a relationship, I could talk to that same woman and be like totally fine, because my brain was not, it, the whole single issue wasn't there, which didn't lead to the what if she hates me, what if she doesn't like me kind of thing.
right,
And it just
right.
used to bug me, because like people would comment on that, of like how confident I was talking to women if I had a girlfriend, and then
Yeah.
they would be a just shocked that like a few months later, if that relationship ended and I was single, I could be in that same situation at a party and just be like, oh, great party, huh? I gotta go. I was just like no confidence whatsoever. It was really frustrating.
It goes back to the thoughts though, right? And
Yeah,
the
it's
thoughts, because you
all,
had
yeah,
said this in
all up here.
last week's episode about thought, how you feel. And it's like, well, because of the thoughts you were thinking made you feel a certain way. And
Exactly.
it's like the thought always comes first, and then the feeling is the response to the thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in all of that, it's momentum, right? When
Yeah.
you were talking about like knowing you're going to go somewhere where there's going to be a lot of people that you don't know. So the whole momentum, like as soon as you found that out, started thinking those thoughts, And then it, grew and it grew and grew. So by the time you got there, forget about it. It was over, Johnny.
It's funny too because I feel like we really need to help each other be confident. Like I feel like we should talk about confidence more often and talk about how to practice it. You know, how to practice thoughts that make you confident and how to put yourself in situations where you practice confidence because I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there are people who have mastered confidence and are not and have ill motives. And the problem is, like, when we go into a situation like a party or whatever, we're just naturally drawn to whoever's confident. We're not drawn to who's the best human being, like who's the most generous or kind or giving. We're drawn naturally to confidence. Like it's another place where I feel like our brains kind of do us a disservice because our brains tell us, oh, that person would be great to hang out with.
Well,
And it's
and
like,
two, I think it's going back to how does it feel when I'm with that person? Because I hear what you're
yeah,
saying. And I always feel that there's always warning bells that go off when I
you're
may be
paying
in
attention.
contact with someone. Right. Yes. And
But
I
I
think
think we can. Sorry.
the more that I practice the art of allowing, like I was thinking, I know that I was very intuitive years ago and I wasn't in touch with it. But now that I've been practicing this practice for so long, the art of allowing and just paying attention to how I feel and noticing more, and then coming into like, oh, well, how does that thought feel?
Yeah.
And I do it perfectly imperfect. Um, but in doing that, I can tell usually if I come in, like you were saying, be attracted to the most confident person in the room. But once I'm in their presence, depending on what comes out, even if they're just spewing out all kinds of good stuff, but if underneath they are not a good person, I believe I can usually sense it. Like in time, people do show their true colors.
Yeah.
And if I'm paying attention, um, I'm aware and then I can
I
not
agree.
interact with that person.
I totally agree. And not to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but the only thing there that I've noticed about myself and others as well is that if I'm feeling not confident in that situation, I may be more likely to not listen to my intuition.
Mm,
And that's I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into is when we're not feeling confident and we're with somebody who's reading is very confident to us.
mhm.
Our brains kind of are attracted to it, and then even if there is like a red flag that pops up between us, we have to believe in our intuition and in our own we have to be somewhat confident to say, "Ooh, that's a red flag, I gotta go." And if we don't
Yeah.
have that confidence, you can say, like, because I've been studying cults recently. I don't want to talk too much about them, but they're kind of sort of surprisingly very similar and in a lot of ways. And
So
yeah,
what about, because you had said earlier about, so then how do I practice being confident? Like
yeah,
what you were saying that, like, what do we do to become confident?
yeah,
And I'd love to hear more about what you think about that. Like, how do
yeah.
you practice? Because when I was saying, yeah, when you said you're not confident or, and I'm like, I can think of like with your work.
Mhm.
I've known you for so many years now. I've just
Yeah,
seen you like really blossom in your confidence around work. And I think that's somewhere where you really have it, a
yeah.
lot of confidence. And that was just kind of trial and error, right? That just came over time, which I think all of this is really a practice. It comes back to practice.
Well, I think really quick, I just want to finish that last thought really quickly. What a lot of people in cults, when they get out, say is that they had that red flag experience with the confident leader. Uh, Cults almost always have this leader who's very confident, and they attract people who are very not confident. And usually, when people get out of the cult, they'll say, I not only just in the beginning, but I had red flags all the way through, but I wasn't listening to my intuition. I was so unconfident myself, I wasn't listening to my intuition. So I think that's why I feel like one of many reasons why confidence is important. To your specific
Well,
question
and listening to and listening to
and listening
your
to your intuition,
your
yes, absolutely,
intuition. And we've always said that all along is like,
yeah,
listen to that. It will not
yeah,
steer you wrong. Like that
Yeah.
is your guidance, your compass. Like it's your direct connection to
Yeah.
all that is. And it will never, ever, and so many times, all of us have stories of like, I didn't listen. I had
Yeah.
that gut, feeling and I just didn't listen.
Yeah.
And so I
And
think
again,
that's a practice too, is like
that's a
listening to
place
it.
that's a place where the brain, again, I don't mean to crap all over the brain. These last two episodes, the brain does a lot of amazing things that we need it to do. However, it does have certain elements that can be a disservice to us if we let them run the show. And that's one
And now
place.
you said it right there, is
Yeah.
like we're the operators of it
Right.
and it's not the operators of us. And it's,
Yeah.
that's where I think a lot of us don't
Because
know that.
I think when most people make the choice not to listen to their intuition, and I definitely am in this category as well, it's a brain decision to overrule like a gut feeling. Like we're intellectualizing over like what we feel emotionally. Like the red flag is a feeling like, something's off. But most times, like in that specific scenario, I can't tell, like, I don't know what it is about that guy, but he just, people say he rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. I'm getting a weird
Or
vibe.
there's like, or I think for me too, there's probably been times where I've wanted something. And so I've
Yeah.
overridden that
Yeah.
gut feeling because I was looking for X, Y, or Z. I would think that,
Well, again, I'm trying to get off the cult topic, but one thing that people get out of cults say is exactly that, is that they were so enamored with what the cult leader promised they would do if they joined, that that's another reason they ignored the red flags, is like, well, I had the red flag, but I really wanted what this guy was said he that I would get
yeah,
out of
yeah,
this
yeah,
class or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So I've now forgotten your original question from 5 minutes ago.
So practicing confidence, what
Oh
would
yeah.
that look like? You
Well,
said you had some.
yes. And as a part of that, I think what you just said before that is true, but it's also kind of an illusion, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Like, I'm confident here, and you could say, well, Collin, you had your own radio show when you were in college, you had a podcast for your band, and you
You
watch and listen to
did.
a lot of podcasts, so that's why you're confident. But that's not. I don't think that's the core. I think the core is, again, it's a thought or belief. My thought is, well, I've done this podcast 1,000, not 1,000 times, but a lot of times. So I just,
Hmm.
when I wake up on Sunday mornings, which is when we record, my brain doesn't go, oh my God, a podcast, what are we going to do? But it's still like, it's a thought,
Yeah.
it's a thought. I have a thought and a
Hmm.
belief that we
Well,
do.
and that's where,
But
and the
you've
thought
heard
comes
me.
first, and
Yeah.
then the belief comes
Yeah,
after I've thought that thought so many times that it
exactly.
then
It's
eventually becomes a
automatic.
belief.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that,
So the thought always comes first. Interesting.
right, right. Yeah. And so I think the trick may be, and I'm not, again, I am no expert on confidence, but I think the trick may be where in areas of our lives where we don't have the belief or common thought there, we need to cultivate it. You need to sort of look at those scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not confident in job
Yeah.
interviews, probably what you're thinking is, when you're going to get job interviews, is, oh my God, I'm not good enough. Oh my God, maybe I'm not going to get this. Oh my God, maybe they hate me. Oh my God, maybe I'm
Yeah.
not, whatever.
I don't
Then
know how to
that's
do
what you've got
this.
to
Yeah.
work on. You've got to program yourself and practice thinking these things until they become beliefs of, like, I'm a great worker. The right job is coming along. This is just a test. Doesn't affect who I am, you know? Because it's
Yeah.
funny too. Like, I think job interviews are like one of the number one things for people where they don't feel confident. But it's so
Hmm.
interesting if you go on the other. I've been on both sides. I've been a hiring person in the corporate world, and I've also been
Mm.
applying for jobs. When you're on the hiring side, you want the person to be confident. You want the interviewee to be confident, because then you're having a discussion between two people on the same level, and you're both getting information from each other, which is the point, you know. But if
Mm.
somebody's super unconfident, which a lot of people just are when they get into a job interview, it's like, I'm not seeing who you really
Hmm.
are. I'm not seeing your strengths and
Mm.
weaknesses. I'm seeing this other version of you that's like this defensive, resistant version of you that's not very attractive, And so it becomes this sort of
Mhm.
self-fulfilling prophecy again, where it's like, oh, I hope I don't, fail this interview. And then you go in and you fail it, not because you didn't know the answers to the questions or whatever. It's just because you had that vibration of like, oh my God, what if bad things? What if bad things? What if bad things?
I love that you said because this person is feeling insecure, whatever, that you're not really seeing who they really are.
Yeah. It's a huge problem
That
if
was
you're a hiring
beautiful.
person. Yeah.
And and as you were talking about this scenario, I thought of myself when I feel like I have something at stake, like there's something I want,
Hmm.
then I'm nervous.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I'm not offering someone anything, I'm not asking for anything, I'm just here to be with you, I feel comfortable, I feel confident, I'm just being myself. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. The other thing I was thinking about too is this phenomenon we have, at least, and I mean, I think it's a lot of the Western world at least, but it's definitely here in America where we sort of worship celebrities, famous people. And I've always thought
Mhm.
that's a weird thing. And I've seen celebrities interviewed, and it's like they feel like it's this very strange thing when they meet a regular person on the street or something, and the person is a fan, and they're just like sort of psychotic of how much they love this person. And I think what the
Mhm.
celebrity's experiencing there is, I mean, it's the weirdness of like, well, they watch me on TV every week and I've never met them. That's just weirdness. But there's also an element of like, this emotion they're feeling for me is disproportionate to what's actually happened between us. Like, you can't love me this much, you know? And I think one of the things that's going on there is like, and I mean, this happened to me when I was younger. I'm not sure it still happens today, but if I would go see a movie and I would see an amazing movie actor, play a role, what I'm watching is 2 hours of them being super confident, right? Because they've made it in Hollywood. They're a leading actor in Hollywood. So I'm watching someone that in a carefully edited 2 hours of them being their most confident version of themselves, right? So, but we all know Hollywood actors, like anybody else, have insecurities, have personal problems, have their dogs get sick, they get sick, like they have all this other stuff. But like that's the thing when people watch a TV show or a movie or they follow a band or a musician that's famous, like all they're seeing of this person is them at their most confident all the time, and it's a little bit of a skewed view of them as a human being. So when you
Yeah.
meet them, it's like you're this magical being that's confident all the time, and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
what the celebrity is aware of is like, I threw up yesterday. I had a bad hot dog and I threw up in my kitchen yesterday. I am not this magical being that you think I am. But it's that thing of like the confidence being so attractive. If that's all you see, then.
Well, and I was just thinking, like, how many times I know you've done this, I've definitely done it, watched a movie over and over again if I loved it, and
Yeah,
maybe the same scenes
yeah,
over and
yeah,
over again. And so I've had this experience with them multiple times. So I've created this relationship with them that they don't even know about or, aren't
yeah,
even a part of. But also, it goes back to that whole practice thing that you were talking about of confidence is like, watching them be confident or doing their, what they do for a living.
yeah.
What was I doing in watching them? I was practicing
Hmm.
something that they were doing. And so it comes back to just practicing. So what if I did that for myself,
Yeah,
where I just acted as if? I remember working with a coach years ago, and one of the things was feeling insecure about my abilities of a business as a businesswoman, as a life coach. And she said, how imagine yourself as successful and where you want to be, how do you feel? And I said, and I have this visual in my head, I'm standing in my dining room and I'm just dressed really casually, like in shorts because it's summertime, and I'm just kind of going about my day. But then I spend like a couple hours coaching clients, and then I'm going about my day, and I felt secure, I felt confident, successful, happy, thankful. And she's like, okay, I want you to practice those emotions. And I've had, multiple times, like a couple of months ago, had finished coaching a client, and then I took Nibbles, my granddaughter's dog, for a walk, and then I had an errand to run, and then I was going to come back and coach another client, and I thought, oh my God, this is like I wanted this schedule. I wanted to be able to do this, and just that feeling, like, what does it feel like? And then I flash back to when I was being told by a coach to practice that, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm living that now. So it is a feeling, and it's a practice, and it's just something that, what do they say, whoever you admire, whatever you admire, know that you are that too,
Mm,
and then
yeah.
cultivate it. And then if we need to borrow someone, I just remember, like, Oprah, sometimes I would kind of um practice her energy, or others. So
Yeah.
that would be a trick to do, practice confidence. Is, who do you see? Who do you think is really confident, or who do you most admire and want to be like? And then kind of emulate that sometimes.
I think I've told this story on the show before, but hopefully it was a long time ago, so I'm not boring people by telling it again. But um, I didn't know if this would work. I just had a hunch that it would. But I was teaching acting to adult students. I just set up sort of classes on my own when I was living in Cincinnati in 2003, I think. Um, I just put an ad in the paper and charged people a fee, and I rented this space and I just taught acting because I'd been an actor and I taught acting before. And
Wow.
one of the things that I was worried about though is like, and this goes across the board for any sort of acting class, whether it's in high school or college or grad school or private lessons or whatever. Like, people taking acting classes are insecure about how good at acting they are. And it's like, again, as a teacher, it's like, that is just so annoying because you can't, if somebody's completely stuck in their fear of being a bad actor, you can't actually work on acting. You're working on the fear, which is not the art. It's just like some mental game they're playing in their head. Um, and so I tried this thing on my first class, and I was just like, oh, let's see if this works. And I told them, I was banking on the fact that, I had a Master of Fine Arts degree in acting. I had done a little bit of acting in New York City, not a lot, but um, and some professional summer theater stuff, and I was banking on the fact that that would be impressive to them, which it was. And I said, so they all came in the first, class. They sat down in their chairs, and at some point in my intro spiel, I said, and I just want to let you know, this is kind of a weird thing, but I have this like weird like radar special like sixth sensibility to tell if people are really talented as performers, like right when they walk in the door. Like, I don't know why. It's just been a thing. I've just been able to see, whether people are really talented or not. And I said, I did my thing. I looked really carefully at each of you when you walked in, and I'm happy to say all of you are just brilliantly talented. And I said, people can, I've taught a lot of acting classes. I've been in a lot of acting classes as a student. You can waste a lot of time talking about talent, but I know you're talented. We've discussed it here. So we don't have to have another conversation about talent for the rest of the course. And the thing that was most amazing was the instantaneous reaction to that. It
Mm.
helped the whole class, but like literally, and I think I had like 8 students maybe. Everybody went from like clinched and scared and like whatever, and they were kind of confused while I was saying it, and then they just like, everybody relaxed and started smiling. Like
Mm.
their whole body changed. And
Mm.
that freaked me out because I was like, I totally just lied to them.
But did
But
you? But did
frankly,
you?
I didn't. I mean,
But
that's
did
what
you?
was weird. That was weird. Is I think there's a certain.
Mm.
I mean, it's probably too far a stretch to say that anybody who ever takes an acting class is talented. But number one, I think we're all more talented at lots of things that we never even consider.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, for most people, if they have a passion in their heart for acting and they go to an
Yeah,
acting class,
exactly.
they most likely have talent. They may not be whatever Tom Cruise or
Yeah.
the Royal
Yeah.
Shakespeare Company
Yeah.
level, but like they're talented. And the thing is,
Mhm.
but the thing about that is, regardless of that, if you take an acting class and you're just focusing on learning and having a good time acting, you're gonna get so much more out of that than if you spend 6 weeks
Mhm.
or whatever, 2 nights a week, obsessing in your mind about what if I'm not good enough, what if I'm not,
Torturing
like, it's just
ourselves.
awful.
Yeah,
It's just
I
awful.
know. Yeah,
So
absolutely. And we do it to ourselves. Like
we do.
when I am having that fearful thought or that negative thought, I'm the one that's thinking it, not someone else. I'm
Yeah,
doing it all to myself. Just like
yeah,
when I'm having that positive thought, no one else is doing it to me. I'm the one doing it. So
yeah.
no
But
one else is.
I think your earlier point about beliefs is really good. Like beliefs can sort of seem like nothing's happening, like we're not doing anything, because they're so ingrained, they're so natural that like the situation or thing happens, and we don't even necessarily see it as like, oh, I had a thought. It's just like, here I am in that
It's
belief,
so
in whatever that
automatic.
belief
Yeah.
creates, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it is, it's still that. I mean, that's, I have a belief that I'm decent at this podcast, so I don't worry about it. But I could foster that in the areas of my life where I don't feel confident, just by, continually reinforcing that thought, or just like real making sure I'm in a good space, because we've talked about how affirmations don't really work when you're in negative space. But
And so that's why I wanted to save this for the end of this episode because I want you, Colin, to know and myself to know, and everyone listening, that I have been told by the energy and source that all is that we are absolutely happy, healthy, wealthy, powerful, and successful. And so it is, it's done. So go out and enjoy your life and act as if, because it's true.
awesome. That was awesome. It was awesome for me. Hopefully, it was awesome for you too. I really enjoyed this discussion. I hope you out there listening and watching got something out of it today. Remember, we are posting a brand new episode for you every Monday morning at this point. And we also appreciate you doing whatever you can to help us out. Like us, follow us, subscribe to us, leave us a comment. All of our social media links and our email address are in the doodly doo on YouTube. We wish you a happy and abundant week. We hope you're enjoying 2023 and you're off to a good start. And we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station.